Happy month of modern, everyone. Woo! I'm Leah Siviak, Director of Interior Design and Principal at HMH Architecture. Before I begin, I just wanted to share a few words. Month of Modern started in 2014 as an idea to celebrate our 25th anniversary and give back to our community. After canceling 2020 edition, we're back and we're pumped for our 7th year of events. We hope you visit monthofmodern.com and grab tickets to our wrap party fashion show next week. It's going to be really great. Month of Modern festivities would not be possible if it weren't for our generous sponsors. We are extremely grateful for their help in making this celebration possible. Please join us in thanking these organizations especially. Premier Mortgage Group, Month of Modern's champion sponsor for 2021. My personal mortgage broker for my first home. Boulder Lifestyle and Modern and Denver magazines as our media partners. Woo! Cottonwood Custom Home Builders. Woo! Signature Windows and Doors and Firuza Sadie for our kickoff event. That was super awesome. Whoever was there, it was really great. And a special thanks to Boulder Commons for providing the amazing space for this year's wrap party and fashion show. And we also partnered with Art Squared. And all ticket holders for that party are going to get a sneak peek at Corey Richards' Icon 2 show. So you don't want to miss that. And Ray Bailey, where are you? Thank you. We're excited to have you behind the camera. And thank you, Kayla and Scott from Transcend Event Productions for helping with sound. And lastly, you guys, the audience, without you, none of this is worth it. Thank you for your support and supporting Month of Modern and its mission. And now for the fun, let me introduce Christy Freeland.
Thank you, Leah, for that introduction, and to all our sponsors as well. We've got a pretty great night in front of us. I'm excited to dive into the interior design world of Month of Modern. And first, I want to introduce Katie Story, who's with us tonight. She is the founder of the Good Future Design Alliance, otherwise known as the GFDA. We will be talking about them quite a bit tonight. And she came to us from California, so thank you for being here tonight. This is our first official GFDA Colorado event, so we're really excited. How many of you are GFDA members? Raise your hand. Yay. Awesome. I'm going to hand the mic over to Katie and let her tell you a little bit about the GFDA. So come on up.
Thank you. Sure. I'll stand over here. Does that work for your pointer? Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Cool. This is great. So fun to actually be here and to see members. Let's meet after this. This is the first time getting to meet members. I'd love to talk to anyone else in the audience afterwards and hear what brings everyone here. I don't want to take too much time, but I did just want, for those who don't know, I wanted to just explain a little about the Good Future Design Alliance, which is an alliance of design and build professionals committing to reduce their waste by 50% over 5 years. And the reason this exists at all is because I'm an interior designer first in San Francisco, and through my experience as an interior designer, I became very privy to how much waste I was making and how much was being created across the industry. 2 things happened within a couple weeks of each other that really were like pretty pivotal moments, in that I ordered a sofa from Oakland that went to North Carolina and then came back to San Francisco to my client's house. And so for those who don't know, that's about 7 miles between Oakland and San Francisco. But the sofa actually traveled about 6,000 extra miles, like wrapped in plastic, on a truck across the country and back, right? So I don't think that was an isolated incident. I think it probably happens a lot. So that happened. Then a couple weeks later, I was on a project install, 20,000 square feet. We had been working on this project for a couple years. A lot of design, intention went into it. And we were there at install, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even see all like the beautiful colors and rugs and sofas. I see piles of packaging peanuts and plastic and styrofoam. And I took my team, I said, we have to get out of here and we have to start redirecting what we do. And so I did that. I started digging in. Fast forward, I won't go through all the details, but basically we created this alliance where any design and build professional, so whether you're an interior designer, an architect, a builder, a landscaper, or a product maker, is encouraged and welcomed to join us in making this commitment to reduce your waste. And if you're excited to join and make a commitment, then we give you tons of resources to help you on your journey towards low waste. And I think there's some slides up there that are just kind of showing, like, we call it a toolkit, but it's a guide, a 10-step process to kind of give you the resources that you're going to need to get to low waste. So talking points, where to shop, how to project checklists, etc. There's a bunch of them. Don't need to go into all of them. And the scope of the problem, as we're going to kind of talk about tonight, is pretty dramatic. You're probably aware, but 500 million tons of furniture or of construction and demo debris end up in the landfill every year in the US. Of that, like 12.2 million tons of furniture ends up in the landfill. And we're consuming about 2 times what the planet can sustain. So that's not a very good trajectory for us or for the industry. So what we're really trying to do is create this national movement of people committed to reducing waste and wanting to operate differently. We still want to design and build and make beautiful things and come to spaces like this and see beautiful lighting like Ted's, everything. We still want to encourage that, but we want to really start shifting into a much more sustainable way. And I think we're going to get into some of that, starting with like manufacturing here tonight. We'll have more panels throughout the year on different topics, but with that, I'm just going to let the panelists take over. So thanks, Christy.
Thank you, Katie. Okay. I'm going to talk for hopefully a short amount of time because we want to give the stage to our panelists tonight. We're super excited to kick off this event tonight. One of the reasons that I reached out to Katie a couple years ago about bringing the GFDA to Colorado was because of the clear vision and goals that this alliance brings to the table. We all know that sustainability is a huge topic. Sometimes it's quite inundating trying to figure out how to incorporate it into our projects and our businesses. And there is no black and white. There's give and take to every piece of sustainability. But with the GFDA focusing on reducing waste, the good practices become very clear and quite achievable, especially when we are working within community with each other and learning and teaching each other what we're up to. So I love that by focusing on waste reduction, we naturally also tick off other sustainability boxes in the wake of our efforts. For those of you who are just hearing about the GFDA for the first time tonight, follow us on Instagram. It's quite a visually appealing experience. Katie's done a really good job with the Instagram feed, and it's a lot of scary and sad data in beautiful colors and fonts. And it won't ruin your day. And by all means, join us. It is a sliding scale membership fee. We want everyone to be a part of this who wants to be a part of it. And tonight, we are, addressing the production side of interior design. There's so many pieces of the puzzle when it comes to waste. We've got packaging, construction, consignment, recycling, reupholstery. There's like a million things to talk about when we talk about furniture and interior design waste. But because our panelists that we're so lucky to have tonight are here with us, they're all in the world of production. They've made a lot of the very hard decisions for us. So as interior designers, we get to rely on you guys and your expertise so that when we put things in front of our clients, we can feel really good about the reduction of our footprints that we're doing in practice. I'm already off script, so I'm just going to roll with this. Like Katie said, we're going to have a bunch of events in the future, so follow the GFDA, join the GFDA if you want to hear more about any of the other topics, for instance, construction waste. We are already doing an event in a couple weeks with Denver Design Week on October 19th. Jeff Hindman, who's in our audience tonight, and he's a trailblazer in the Boulder community with waste and green building. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. He will be on this panel, and we will be talking about construction waste then, but tonight we're going to get into production. So let's meet our panelists. We've got, we're so lucky to have like incredibly talented makers here in the Boulder community, and we love supporting locally. There's definitely a waste and sustainable story to just the localism of their businesses. But we've got tonight Hannah Rogel, the designer of at Boulder Furniture Arts. Thanks for being here, Hannah. And thanks for giving us this space to have our event. Next is Jordan Williams. He is a co-founder of Salt Wolf. They are a furniture company based out of Boulder. They make upholstery pieces, one of them sitting right up here on the stage. We'll be talking about the wasteful or reduction of waste that you have considered along your production line.
We make our stuff in North Carolina. I already feel like I've done something wrong. We'll talk.
We'll get into that. Phyllis Ripple, the founder and CEO of Eco Fiber Custom Rugs. Feel free to applaud anyone. We have samples of her product all over the showroom. If you don't know about them, they're beautiful rugs. They are made of incredible materials in a very sustainable fashion, and you can get any color, any design you want. So there's great opportunity to work with Phyllis here in Boulder. And last but not least, Ted Bradley. Applause. Ted Bradley Studio manufactures amazing light fixtures. This one hanging in the middle of our space tonight is one of his pieces amongst, go to his website, check out the other pieces, they're gorgeous. And I'm really excited to talk about your packaging, personally. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves in more depth and detail, and also tell us what brought you here specifically tonight for this event.
Well, thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. What brings me here tonight is I pretty much live here. So thank you for coming to my house for this. So my husband and I run Boulder Furniture Arts. It's a 36-year-old custom furniture company based only here in Boulder. And we're woodworkers. That's the medium that we work with primarily. There's certainly inclusion of things like steel and fabrics and glasses, but at the heart of what we do, we're working with what is, in our opinion, nature's best renewable material. And sometimes we find ourselves sort of going against the grain, no pun intended, with our patterns and practices of using solid materials, using really durable hardware that may be over the top for what you think you're buying, all in the interest of reminding people that furniture is actually something that you, under proper care, should be able to pass on to anyone you like, but especially the ones who will appreciate it after us. So here at BFA, it's, sustainability is kind of part of the essence of what we do. That part kind of goes without saying, but the amount of waste in the industry, especially in a place like Boulder, where we see Craigslist Christmas twice a year with student move-ins and move-outs, and it can be pretty graphic for us here in town. So it's great to be able to offer the resources that we can to show people that that's not the only way it has to be done.
So hi, I'm Jordan Williams. I'm the co-founder of Salt Wolf with my wife and business partner, Lindy Williams, who's here in the front row. There's a slightly longer story, but Lindy's an interior designer, has been for about 15 years. I joined her firm, which was booming here in Boulder, called Westward Foundry. And through that, I got to sit in the middle of a modern design business from outside the industry and get to look at how crazy the industry is in terms of how things are bought, where things come from, lead times, sourcing, which, long story short, led us to found Salt Wolf, which is a to-the-trade, made-to-order upholstered furniture company. And through tonight, we'll talk about the decisions we made to where did we go for manufacturing, the materials we chose to use in our goods. But fundamentally, I would say to sort of frame where we're coming from is it really started as we dove into it with this question of the millions, 12 million tons or 12 million pounds of furniture is thrown into American landfill every year. And so we sort of framed this issue around furniture that ends up in a landfill has the biggest impact of all. And then everything else is questions and compromises along the way. And so that's sort of where we come from in terms of the decisions we're making. And so this is one of our pieces. And as we're thinking about what to bring tonight, by way of being a little spicy, this is polyester velvet. Ooh. But we brought it for a reason, because it's sort of interesting to talk about why that might actually be not a horrible choice. So we'll talk about that along the way, but that's sort of the context that we bring to this conversation, and really excited to hear what everybody else is coming from.
Phyllis?
I'm Phyllis Ripple, and I founded Ecofiber Custom Rugs 15 years ago. And my love affair with rugs started a long time ago. And the more I learned about the rugs I admired, I took note of the way they were produced, the dyes that were used for that 100-year-old rug that's in a museum that I would like to have on my floor, and the fact that it was all handmade. So I founded my company based on those principles. I use fibers that are locally sourced in Kathmandu. All the rugs are hand knotted by adult weavers in Kathmandu. All of the dyes I use are vegetable. I don't use any chemical backing. I don't use glue. I don't use a chemical wash or a green wash. It's just kind of distilled to its purest form. It's 3 people working on a rug that is any size, any shape, any color. And the fibers I use are plant fibers: nettle, hemp, linen, cactus, which is really a yucca. And then the protein fibers, wool from Tibet, which has a very, very great wool, and silk, mohair, cashmere, and 2 kinds of silk. So it's a totally customizable, and it's totally sustainable. Everything biodegrades that I make.
Great. Hi, I'm Ted Bradley, and I'm very excited to meet you all tonight. I was working in corporate tech for many years and dreamed about doing something I was really passionate about, working with my hands and bringing designs to life. And so I made the transition a couple of years ago and launched into a project that was supposed to take 2 months, and ended up taking over a year to build that sculpture that is sitting there. And it's since developed into a line of about 30 porcelain ring sculptures, and it's been a total blast. I enjoy the work every day, the design element, and the whole goal up front was to not only enjoy what I do, but to make a positive impact. And so hiring folks and paying them a great wage, maybe folks who wouldn't be able to get that type of job normally, and then trying to reduce the impact as much as possible. And so that's been a super fun journey as well, and excited to talk with all of you about it tonight.
Thank you all so much. I have a lot of questions. Do you? I hope you guys do. You posed one right there in the middle of your, excited to poke. Okay, so Hannah, Boulder Furniture Arts, its overhead strain on the environment says it's a fraction of other furniture companies. I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit, and also maybe weave in why getting local, I think the answer might be clear to most of us, but just touch on why having things made here locally can reduce the waste that versus other furniture companies.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, a local company, of course, by definition, is not in all parts of the country or all over the world. In our case, we are fortunate enough to actually have the entire sales cycle contained within one building. You pull up and park, you talk to me, I talk to them, gets made right back there, and then we wrap it in some moving blankets and bring it to you, and then take those moving blankets back with us. So in general, it is just a tremendously simplified cycle from start to finish. We are working with raw materials that are entirely sustainably harvested at this point. That's been the case for a very long time for those of us who are woodworkers. But the industry at large has been pretty good with forestry products in the United States. All of the hardwoods that we will be working with have been certified by the FSC, the Forest Stewardship Council, as sustainable. That goes for both hardwoods, like the vast majority of what you're seeing here, as well as the limited amount of sheet goods that we do include in things like backing for projects. The sheer transportation alone, of course, is a pretty glaring step we get to skip here. My lumber yards are in Denver and up to Fort Collins. I'm never traveling, or anyone here is ever traveling more than about 60 or 75 miles round trip to be acquiring the raw material. And then throughout the process, you want to make a change, you can come and see it. There are not a lot of finished samples produced. You come and knock on it, We get to be almost entirely paperless. There are no ad campaigns, there are no catalogs even. And as a result of that, people love the process because it is such an understandable one. It's a very honest process. It's a very honest product. And if down the road you find that there's something wrong with it, just call us. It's pretty much that easy. Now I know for interior designers, it can be pretty tricky to get your clients to spend more for local under a lot of circumstances. But I wonder if these days we're not seeing a pretty significant growth uptick in just folks who are tired of it, tired of lead time, tired of supply chain issues. And for the longest time, that was a big problem here, was lead time. No one wanted to wait. We were the longest lead time that you would be dealing with. And
Pandemic solved that for you guys.
all of a sudden, we are the lickety-split local custom furniture maker. And we're hearing from you folks and from your clients that people are waiting 10 months and a lot longer than that for things that are not even handmade, let alone customized in any way. And maybe when that's the case, or for as long as that's the case, we will continue to be an easier choice for clients to make. Our lead times are accurate.
Yeah. I think that's you made a lot of really good points, but I know as an interior designer, yes, we are all A, thriving in the world of pandemic, and B, struggling with all the unknowns. It's so challenging. I know that all of you know about this. And it's such a great opportunity to introduce this, hey, let's work locally for these reasons. The people that we want to be in your home, or the products we want to be your home, now is the time to seize that opportunity. So thanks for highlighting that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have more questions, but I'm going to keep going down. Jordan, please elaborate on, you were talking about I should just look at my notes. Why don't we do that? So, as designers, we are always encouraging our clients to invest in quality before cutting corners and pricing our timeline. And as you've been developing your product line, I know you guys have mindfully and carefully sourced materials like leather, linen, even the upholstery fill, which is a huge topic in its own. Tell us more about some of the decisions that you had to make in the name of sustainability and or perhaps against the name of sustainability just to have a product you could stand behind.
Yeah. So as I said in the intro, I think when we were starting Salt Wolf, I read that stat that was shared earlier as well, and also was reading all these articles about the unfortunate influence of things, the sort of double-edged power of things like Instagram and Pinterest in creating sort of in the home what was happening in fashion, which was fashion had gone to fast fashion. I read a stat that the average European has like 52 pieces in their wardrobe and the average American has 300 plus. And that shopping is sort of a habit and a hobby and a pastime was sort of what was happening. And the idea was you just go to Zara or H&M and buy stuff and wear it, and then as soon as it was out of fashion, you'd sort of pitch it, which in the fashion context has its own sort of horrific nature. But that was starting to happen in the home space where people who were trying to be influencers were redecorating their home or their apartment all the time, and therefore the rise of so-called fast furniture was coming about. And at the same time, in working at Westward Foundry, the interior design firm that Lindy had that I joined, we were also feeling the pressure from clients of speed. The sort of Amazonification of everything, right? I can get whatever I want, whenever I want, as fast as I want. And working with clients who had great budgets, but the double-edged sword was, it's because they'd started a tech company and everybody told them no, and they found a way to say yes, or make it happen, and therefore, through the design process, they were gonna find a way to, like, I can find a way to make it happen faster. And so speed was sort of becoming an issue. So we ended up sort of launching Salt Wolf with this idea of, could you make really high quality furniture faster? Before the world sort of came apart at the seams, we were hand making furniture on a 4-week lead time. Yes, good answer, good reaction. And it does involve making it in North Carolina, and it does involve trucking it to its home, wherever it will go and live. But we were able to manufacture in the US, manufacture made to order, so there's no inventory. We know where it's being made, who it's being made by, what they're being paid, the working conditions they're in. And we got to make all the choices that went into the product. So to get to the core of your question, upholstery's hard. It's wonderful, and everybody has it, and everybody loves it, and in the context of this conversation, sucks. Like, I feel really envious of everybody else on the panel because we don't make everything in a biodegradable nature. We can't make everything in a biodegradable nature. And so ultimately, we ended up with this idea that, as I said, if we can keep things out of landfill and have things last on a generational scale, all of our frames are guaranteed for life. They're made by hand in North Carolina, old school 8-way hand-tied seating suspension. Our cushions have an inner spring coil in them. And to unpack some of that, it goes into compromise. That's everything. If you want to get into a conversation with sustainability, my belief is it's compromises. That's all it is. There's no beautiful silver bullet that gets you out of it. So ultimately, we started with things like foam. We have to use foam. Foam's gnarly stuff. Well, could we use sort of soy-based foam? Well, you start looking into things like soy-based foam, which feel really good to say that you have soy-based foam. To qualify as being listed as soy-based foam, only 10% of the total ingredients in that foam has to be derived from soy. The next question becomes, where's your soy from? Is it GMO from Brazil and forests were cut down to plant soy to supply you? Well, that's not a great answer. We then went into, well, maybe we could do natural latex. So it's a natural product, it does biodegrade, it's great. Well, you start digging into that. There's a few unknown problems. One is there hasn't necessarily been enough history, or sort of from a case study perspective, sort of years gone by with heavy use pieces being made out of natural latex to understand how they'll last. So if you want to use latex, we weren't ready to go there yet because we didn't know if it was going to last, which again, if the piece falls apart, we've lost. The second issue is latex is natural rubber. It comes from rubber trees, which then goes to where do you source rubber? Well, you're in Southeast Asia, South Asia. It's a lot of plantations. So then it goes into sort of, are people deforesting that area to grow rubber plant? It just, the sort of snowball rolls out. So ultimately we landed on, we're using traditional high density foam, which when there's a winter storm in Texas that doesn't know how to winterize anything, you learn quickly that our foam is made of byproducts of the petroleum distillation process, which also means that you run out of foam when Texas shuts down, as most of you probably know. So then it goes to, well, how can we use the least amount of foam possible? So then it goes to, well, if we can do 8-way hand-tied spring suspension in the base, we don't have any material in the base other than string, recycled steel springs, and wood. And then in the cushion, instead of just being a solid block of foam, we actually take up a big chunk of that inner foam with air and recycled steel springs, which not only feel better when you sit on it, last longer, but it also displaces a huge chunk of foam that in most pieces is just a solid block. And then lastly, and it goes on, but it goes into, well, what are you upholstering with? And as I joked earlier, we talked about what to bring, and we could have brought a leather piece or a linen piece and probably gotten away with like, it's linen and it's natural and it's great, but we picked this because it furthered the conversation. We have a couple pieces at home. So our materials we use, we offer COM and everything. So a lot of what we do is working with designers on them picking the material, which again, for us is empowering you all in, you make that choice, whatever choice is right for you and your client. But we have a really limited stock fabric program. And that goes into a bunch of things. One, we also learned when we started digging into this that fabric is another Pandora's box of sustainability, production lead times, where does it come from, what's it made of. I would say, and I'm gonna look at Lindy to validate this, probably 90% of the fabric conversations we had, we would tell people what we're looking for, they would politely nod, and then start showing us all of the Chinese-made polyester for $2 a square foot materials they had. And we would politely explain that wasn't what we're looking for. So even though this is polyester, it's actually from the oldest continually operating velvet mill in America. It's in South Carolina, and it's about 120 miles from our production facility in North Carolina. So it's polyester, but it's made in America by an American mill, and it's close to where we're producing. So we're sort of trying to solve some of these gaps. And in terms of materials, we have the velvet, we do have a Belgian linen, and then we have Italian leathers. And some of that goes into sourcing leathers from the EU, means that we're incurring freight on those coming across the ocean. But on the other hand, the cattle are grown and the leather is tanned in the EU, and there are stringent environmental policies. We understand how the leather is tanned, what materials they're using, the wastewater byproduct process, as opposed to the processes that are more problematic in India, in South America, where there are much lighter regulations or no regulations, and you hear the horror stories of tanning byproduct being just exited into rivers. And ultimately, in the sort of last answer to your question, it comes back to durability. We would work with clients in our interior design business who said, we want something really sustainable, and they would lead us down to something like organic cotton or a beautiful cotton velvet or an untreated raw linen. It was beautiful. And so many times they would come back to us X months later and basically say, life happened, and now I feel like my piece is kind of ruined, and what do we do? We actually have a linen sectional at home, and we have a velvet sectional at home, and we, like everybody, got a pandemic puppy, and our linen sectional has suffered a little bit from that. It doesn't have a stain treatment on it, and as good dog owners as we want to be and as hard we're working to train, mistakes happen, and our dog has peed on that sofa a couple times. On the velvet, hasn't peed on it, but our son has dumped a Jamba Juice mango smoothie. We spilled red wine on it. We spilled coffee on it. It feeds up, you wipe it off, it looks brand new. So the fabric's problematic. It will last for a really long time. It won't biodegrade. But might it exist in our home in beautiful condition for years on years? Yes. And is that maybe not better, but is that a choice worth making? Versus, I think, some of the people who are inclined to say, well, I just want the rawest material possible. And then they go for a mountain bike ride and they come home and they sit down and realized it was muddy and now they've got a ruined piece of furniture. So ultimately, our story is really about this choice of when you start peeling back the layers of the onion, there are more questions behind every layer. There are more decisions behind every layer. And ultimately, our belief is making the decisions that felt right to us and then being as transparent with you as possible. So if you go on our website, all of what I just talked about is there and much more verbose detail. Because our belief is if you're selling goods to your client, we want you to be able to explain whatever they want to know about that piece. Rather than, I'll name the elephant in the room, them going and buying something from RH. Let's just talk about them for a second. Anyway, that's a whole other panel. But buying from RH or another trade source where there's no information about where things are coming from, what it's made of, where it's made, who's made it, how long it will last, etc. So ultimately, sort of choices, compromises, and then transparency.
Thank you. That was incredible to hear. I think there's so many things that could come out of what's going to happen tonight, by the time we get to this end of this discussion. And one is that as designers, we really do rely on our manufacturers to be doing that level of homework. And I bet you a lot of money if I called my RH rep right now, they wouldn't know much about how to tell me anything about their products. So that education is really, really important for everyone to know. And I think it's really important, too, to be transparent about, in the name of waste or reducing it, the longevity of product is one of the most important things because most people are getting stuff fast, saving some money, and 5 years later, it's going off to consignment or who knows where. So, convincing our clients that spending more up front saves them much more money in the long run. And I think most of our clients, as far as I can tell from the faces that I know in this audience, can afford to spend a little bit more up front in order to have pieces that last a very, very long time. So
I agree with that, but there is a really fascinating economic sort of, there's a whole window into that
there
would be
is
interesting to chat about.
Yeah. Phyllis, you have an incredible team of, like you were talking about, adults in Nepal who are making your rugs, and they're doing it in a very sustainable way. You were talking to me earlier this month about some of the corners that other companies might cut in the name of waste and how they're dealing with their byproduct of dyeing and treating all of their area rug fibers that you have specifically chosen not to in the name of reducing waste and treating the environment friendly. I'd love to hear you talk more about that.
Well, I consider myself really lucky not to have some of the obstacles you've had, but I have it's a boutique rug company. I work to the trade. I only deal with designers, and the corners that are cut are, using chemical dyes that don't require as much time in the dye bath. They don't require a skilled person to oversee the dyeing of that fiber because there's probably a formula that they, if it's cashmere, you soak it for this long. But cutting corners on dyeing and using chemical dyes is a big one. Cutting corners by greenwashing your carpets is ridiculous. There are carpets made in Nepal that are flown to Switzerland to be greenwashed, flown back to Nepal, and then exported. We don't do any of that. If you ever hear of a greenwash, it's a lie. There's really no such thing.
Sorry to interrupt. I think of greenwashing as like someone convincing me that a product is green when it's not. Can you tell us about your version of greenwashing?
Well, in the rug business, that's the way they agitate the rug. and they also coat it, spray it with something to protect it, or maybe an insecticide. If it's a hemp fiber rug, that's a very popular thing to do, but we don't do any of that. But that's greenwashing. Yeah, it is kind of like lying, but yeah. But they do actually go through a bath in Switzerland and then get sent back to Nepal. But in my company, we don't do that because we only operate during daylight hours because the source of electricity is very unreliable in Kathmandu. And production, if you relied on electricity, your production could be delayed hours at a time, days at a time sometimes. And my business can't run that way. And luckily, the people who work for me don't work that way. They work during daylight hours. We dry all of our rugs on the rooftop. We don't put them in a machine. Everything is totally customizable. And I don't maintain an inventory. I don't maintain a showroom. I work on an individual basis with interior designers. I send them samples. If you want a sample that I don't have, I'll make it for you. It's just, it's easy. And I don't produce a lot of samples that sit in resource libraries and get moth-eaten, because everybody loses. And so that's one of the ways. I don't cut corners environmentally that way. And in terms of the culture of weaving, the way my rugs are made, or the way your rugs will be made, is very, very simple. 3 people on a loom. They follow a chart. They do it by hand. Frequently, families work together. We use communal looms. None of the weavers come into an office. They work in a courtyard where they live. And we don't allow children on the looms. And everything is customizable. So I feel really fortunate. But the biggest obstacle is the packaging. Well, first of all, the rugs have to be packaged at this point with 6 mil plastic, polyethylene. And then on the outside, it's that woven plastic that is so durable that's just, you can't destroy it, but it's plastic. There's got to be another option, using a cellulose or something. But I've been inspired, and thank you, Katie, and thank you, Christy, for inviting me, because as a result of this, I've been researching some of the companies that are really devoting themselves to sustainable packaging, and I'm blown away by some of the options that are out there. I just don't know enough right now to see how affordable or available they are, like everything from mushroom to, soy products, all kinds of things there are a lot of innovators. I'd like to see some of that innovation in packaging come from Colorado, and I think we're capable of that.
Yeah, if anyone has any ideas for Phyllis of what to do with her cellulose plastic packaging.
Yeah, I was going to say
Eco and
Enclose.
Eco Enclose.
We use them for some stuff.
Louisville, huh?
Yeah.
Eco Enclose?
Mostly cardboard.
Oh, okay.
So for those of you who didn't hear, Eco Enclose is out of Louisville, and they have come up with a lot of alternative packaging materials for products. So check them out. Maybe you should work for them.
Excellent.
We send some of our samples in their materials, and they're great. They're great to work with.
Otherwise, if you have like outdoor cushion company and you want to fill it with some of the cellulose that Phyllis is bringing into the U.S., by all means, you can take it off her hands and repurpose it into something else.
I do reuse the plastic. The rugs come in plastic from Nepal. I ship them out in the same plastic to your home.
Thank you, Phyllis. I will mention real quick, we're going to have a question and answer at the end of by all means, raise your hand if we're in the middle of it and you have something to say, but we're going to have at least like 20, maybe 30 minutes of Q&A at the end of this. So if you have a question and you're worried you're going to forget it, just pull out your phone and write it in your phone and try to remember. Ted, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. We almost didn't have Ted on our panel because he was headed to California, but climate change, man, those fires, they canceled your trip and now we get to have you. So thank you for being here. Yeah. Aren't his pieces gorgeous? I mean, I've never seen anything like it. So we've talked a lot about the production line, incoming raw materials, which you get to choose what those are coming into your shop. When you're in production, you get to make a lot of choices about scrap materials, where things are, how they're handled. And then, of course, going out the door, packaging, which I have a slide to feature your packaging genius, because I want everyone to learn from it. Tell us where you've found maybe some of the easiest opportunities to divert from the norm in the name of preventing waste.
Yeah, I think I just try to think about everything through the whole life cycle of the product. So starting with the sales cycle, the samples, are they consumable, which is what the showrooms are asking for, or are they shipped and returned? And so, of course, I require that they were shipped and returned. I have like a full porcelain light ring that I ship out to folks in a hard case, and they return it again. And so I took a class in college about manufacturing with environmental sustainability in mind, and one of the things that this professor talked about was the opportunity for environmentally sustainable choices to be profitable. And so in my case, I can produce higher quality samples. I can produce a more impactful experience for a designer receiving a sample ring by investing more in it, having it be returnable than if it was just a throwaway piece. So I think it's a win-win. Moving through the sales cycle, choosing materials, and then manufacturing them. All the porcelain, depending on where it is in the cycle, if there's a mistake made in a ring production, it can be rehydrated and put right back in the process. So there's zero waste there. Originally, the porcelain ring manufacturing was about 10% success rate, which is very low. It took me 18 months to learn how to make those rings, but now we're at near 100%, and so nothing's wasted there. Waste is one thing, carbon emissions is another. Kilns, the porcelain is heated out to over 2,000 degrees. It consumes a lot of energy, but it's super easy to offset. You can offset it with renewable energy, solar energy, and what that essentially means is that you are paying a solar farm to produce the same amount of energy that would have been used by a fossil fuel plant. And so all the energy for the kilns is 100% offset. So there's effectively zero emissions for that. If anyone's interested in that, it's like incredibly affordable to do this and really easy to be zero carbon essentially. And then working through the process, all the pieces coming in and the waste that's generated, what's recyclable. Minimizing that at every stage, working with the manufacturers. I've started very small, but I'm just getting to the point now where we're starting to churn out a little more volume and more efficient production, and that means I can really focus on making things more efficient, which is great. And then lastly, the packaging. Great, good slide. So a 6-pound pendant or a set of 4 6-pound pendants needs to go into a crate. There's no other way to ship something like this. But how can it be done in an effective way? And so the very base of this packaging is a pallet. And so I get my pallets from the shop that they're sitting in a stack from a factory across the way, and I just reuse the pallets that they're just throwing away, waiting to get picked up. And then the lumber that goes around the pallet, I get it from Resource, which is reused construction lumber. It was going to go to the landfill, but now it turns into these pallets. The cardboard is 100% recyclable. And then the big thing that you're talking about, the void fill. So all the packaging, peanuts, and how in the world do you fill all this space? So these are carpet tubes, cardboard carpet tubes from a local carpeting shop. I just drive over and get an entire Prius full of carpet tubes, and I chop them up, and these are all these are taking up the space. So there is no void fill. These are stuck in position, and they hold everything in place.
Did you get them from Phyllis?
I should. That's the next step. The ring is at the top, and it's actually wrapped in a corrugated cardboard. So the cardboard is 100% recyclable. It's been perforated again and again and again, and so it's very soft. It's a really cool material. It's almost like bubble wrap. It comes from Eco Enclose. They're awesome. They're fantastic.
What's the name?
Eco, I'll send you an email.
Sorry.
Yeah. And then the cord is wrapped in 100% recyclable FSC tissue paper, and then again, no bubble wrap. There's this brown paper that's again perforated, and that also comes from Eco Enclose. So 100% recyclable, 100% compostable, FSC. The tape, there's no plastic tape. That's masking tape. It's made out of paper. And then when I finish the pallet, there's that, you get those big stretchy rolls of plastic and you go, it's super easy and it's the easiest way to do things, but I don't use any of that. So when you're done, you have something that was made from 100% recyclable materials and is generally compostable. And the last thing I'm doing, can't quite get there yet because I'm not at the volume, but the idea is to send these back. And so then eventually there would actually be, again, I believe that there's probably a win-win from a profit standpoint as well. So there's zero waste and I don't have to recreate these every single time. And so yeah, that's the goal and that's where I'm at.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing. So clearly we have some incredible resources sitting on the stage. If you want to make an impact on your reduction of waste as a designer, you could just order absolutely everything from the 4 of our panelists. But
For making the shameless plug.
yeah, in reality, we all know that probably might maybe not happen. But by all means, it's really good to know that you're here and that we can support you and send our clients in your direction. I have one hard question, and then I'm going to open up to the audience. And I'm not sure who this is directed to, except maybe all of you. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought, but it's really good. Hang on a second. So as designers, we are all, very well educated on our role in society and the impact that we have on the environment. I mean, we are purchasers. We're specifying, we're telling people to buy a lot of stuff for their very large homes. And sometimes when we're in a meeting and we have like 100 things that we're just trying to get approvals to keep it going and keep it going and keep it going, and there just isn't a lot of time to dive into these stories. The first side note I want to make is part of the wonderful thing about having you guys locally is we could literally invite you to our meeting and say, Phyllis, please tell my client about your rugs, because I can only regurgitate so much. So thank you for, I just volunteered you to be available for client meetings. My question for you is, even if as designers we are like terribly driven and we want to do everything we can to reduce our footprint, it is a client-driven world, and it is the consumers at the end of the day that are paying and wanting these products. Do you guys have any tips, since you often aren't the ones in these meetings sitting across the table, for us as designers to help move that needle for them? Is there any, overarching insights or ideas that you have that we could just run with? Do you have any ideas? And if not, does anyone in the audience have tips on how to convince people that this is the way, this is the future?
We were talking about it, I think, just before this, but the notion that, I think I witnessed it in Westward Foundry, which was when it came to sustainability, having that conversation early in the process, and then sort of unpacking what does it mean to them? What do they care about? Because, I think you're only going to win the arguments that are probably winnable. And so, we had design clients where it was really about sort of materials and air quality and sort of toxicity was their thing. So you're like, okay, great. That's where we're going to put energy. That's where we're going to put research and focus, and we're going to win some of those. For other people, it was about, we had one client, it was all about sort of, they really wanted to know where stuff was made and who was making it, sort of the human production element of understanding supply chain and that impact. So I think to me, it feels like, how do you understand where their head's at early in the process? Yeah. And then you can steer selections towards that and probably win more of those arguments easily. Because I think when you have that, like, I want to be sustainable, we were talking about this, you're like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, are we
What's the
trying to
stack-
save the
what's
rainforest? Are we trying to keep your
Right.
baby safe? Are we, like, what are we going
What's
for
the
here?
stacked rank of priorities, and then how many of those can we hit along the way?
Yeah, that's great. Do you guys have any other thoughts on it?
I would just say if you have a client whose objection is the price of a sustainable product, make sure the manufacturer knows about that. And eventually, the prices will come down. Eventually, they'll find a way to get your business. But inform the manufacturers, we didn't choose your product for this reason. It was too expensive, and they chose a non-sustainable option. Let them know, because that's really important information, and they may have an opportunity to make systemic changes in their process that addresses it.
That's great. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say I'm not in these meetings like you guys are, but the little I know is that a lot of people want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to make these decisions that are for for the least impact, but they also want to have the exact piece that they want. And so for me, I think I'm not necessarily putting the sustainable aspects of my pieces as the primary attribute. I'm just trying to sell this beautiful piece that is made from incredibly high quality materials, handmade, and will last forever. And I'm going to do all these things behind the scenes. If you're interested in that, I'll let you know about it. But I'm personally motivated to get to the least possible impact, rather than making that the primary attribute of the sale for myself.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Do you want to chime in?
I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that for us as high quality wood designers, the number one thing that you can look out for your clients on is finishes. If it's made out of wood, how is it finished? Phyllis was addressing the cut corners aspect. That will always be the first thing to go in wood design. It's always going to be a lot more cost effective and a hell of a lot faster to send something through a spray booth than do what we do here, which is 2 weeks of rubbing oil into the pores of a wood surface. We've found a pretty easy thing for clients to get behind, is not eating off of, especially surfaces that might make them sick. Also though, the concept that if you buy something like any of our products, that they might be worth more when you're done with them than what you paid. And of course, that's not categorically true. And of course, if you commission something wildly custom, I can't make any promises. But in our shop, there's a real sense of familiarity with this material, familiarity with something being made out of wood, just inherently lasting. And so, most of your clients, without a lot of discussion, can sort of wrap their heads around that.
Thank you. Let's open up the floor to some other questions from our audience. Go ahead and raise your hand, and I'm going to come around. I'm actually going to have Katie Story come back up on stage in case you have questions about the Good Future Design Alliance. So anyone have any questions about this topic?
You can sit here, you can sit. I don't know, you might have a projector in your face.
There you go.
Yeah. Or you can have Christy's seat over there.
And I realized, a lot of, for those of you who thought you were coming to an event that had to do with what to do with old furniture and how to keep it from ending up in the landfill, like I said, with the GFDA future events, we will be addressing that. In preparation for this tonight, it's been a lot of months of talking to some incredible local resources, a lot of people that I didn't even know about. Kathy Pear's one of them. Talk to her after this event, find out what she's doing with used office furniture. But please follow us, and we'll do a little wrap up here at the end. But definitely know that we're going to talk about all the topics that come in the name of waste at other future events. So, questions? Harvey Hine, what do you have to say?
What do I have to say? I don't have a question. I've got a lot to talk about. Sorry.
Yeah, because I want to take my mask off. I don't mean to barge in, but that's my nature. We have some people, manufacturers here in the room who are local. And I think that, and we've got an amazing amount of talent in this room in terms of designers, builders, interior designers, architects, and others. And a big part of Month of Modern is about bringing everybody together. But really behind all that is my goal is that Boulder becomes the design center of the world in this decade. and, and the only way we can become the design center of the world in this decade is that all of us work together to elevate our design abilities. And that includes, big part of that is the manufacturers. So if you're an interior designer and you want to do the coolest couch that you've ever done, work with these people and say, these are my ideas, what do you know? And go back and forth and come up with something great. And I think that's what we need to do here. And by keeping it local, it's answering Chrissy's question as to, what do we do now? Well, keep it local and build up this ability to come up with something new and different and sustainable so that people around the world go, oh my God, look what's happening in Boulder. This is incredible. And that's why I think we're here. So thanks.
Thank you, Harvey. Any more questions from the audience? I'm going to travel, excuse me. Well, I guess in the name of COVID, hang on a second. Where did my mask go? There we go. Do we have another mic? Or this is it, right? Okay. Okay, where was the hand that I saw? Oh, here we go.
My question is for Phyllis. I wanted to know how you talk to the client when the question comes up, your rugs are made on the other side of the world, and how do you justify that with?
There's nothing I can say other than your rug is going to get flown over here. And I do offer carbon offsets for purchase. If I had a really big job and I had a huge lead time, I could ship it on a boat. But I've never had to do that. I don't have an answer other than that. If you want a rug that's made the way my rugs are made from these materials, fully customizable, it's going to be made in Kathmandu by skilled Tibetan weavers using locally available fibers, and that's plant fibers or protein fibers. They're, with the exception of mohair, which is sourced in South Africa. I don't do a lot of mohair. Most of my rugs are Tibetan wool. So I would say to that client, this rug will last generations, and I can guarantee it.
I also think there's an element of, one of the things we struggled with was, I think we're all experiencing the hangover from the cheap high of globalization, where supply chain diversified globally, which has downsides and upsides. The issue is, and I imagine this is your issue, Phyllis, like we wanted to source all local, all American-made goods. The number of fabric mills left in America is tiny. There were a few hanging on, and then the Great Recession of 2008 put most of what was left under. And so if you want materials made, you have to get them often from somewhere else. Again, it goes to that thing, which is there probably aren't weavers, even if you put aside materials, there aren't weavers in America doing that kind of work. No. So I think some of it goes to, there are skill sets, there are looms, there are things that just don't exist locally. I think in the long term, it'll be really interesting to see if some of that corrects back. But I think that's an element of that answer would be, I think that ship sailed a long time ago for a lot of those skills. And yeah.
Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you for tonight, first of all. I'm Megan from Proud House Studio, and it's lovely to meet all of you. I was curious how many of you have looked into the sustainability with packaging that's going on in the outdoor industry. Have you tapped that resource? Nope. Clothing.
So full disclosure, I used to work at REI.
So do you know how Prana now sends everything with a raffia tab?
Yep.
That was something that I started. One person, okay? And it's been an amazing change. And you know how it started? It started actually with the leaders in the outdoor industry saying, what are our goals? Because our clients are asking us. So as a designer, I feel that it starts with me and asking my clients, what purchasing are you going to do that's going to minimize the footprint of this project?
Yeah.
And then just leave it to them. Because I used to run the Prada store here in town, okay? I was like way back in 2008 when things were crazy. And the question that was given to me was, if we could do one thing this year as a mission for our company, what would it be? And I would say, these plastic bags that everything comes in need to end. And I know it's possible. I don't know how, but I know it's possible. And I did come about it with a little creativity, which was I worked for a really small manufacturer in San Francisco called CP Shades, if anybody knows who those people are. And they manufactured in Sausalito, and they shipped to their stores all over the United States in cardboard boxes, and everything was just loose, and it was fine. And so I just said, has anybody tried it? And so I would love to just encourage everyone in this room to start asking these questions. And we don't have to have the answers, but I think it has to become the priority for the year, which is what is possible? And then that experimentation and creativity, and there's this huge vehicle, a whole industry of sustainability accessible. But we have to first say, this has to change. Every single day, every single manufacturer, every client. And it's not necessarily about timing or cost. It's just the right thing to do, okay?
I love that. Thank you for sharing. I think it's a great point. I think as designers, we have an incredible influential power. We are giving some of these businesses more purchases than a lot of just general consumers walking around on the street, and we have a lot of power in that. You guys have given us some really good material to know what questions to ask our other manufacturers that we might be working with. And if they don't have the right answers, then we have the choice to not work with them. I also like your point about not having to come up with the answers ourselves, but asking the question and letting other people, whether it's clients or suppliers, be accountable for their answers. Putting the work on them. That's where it's going to work. Yeah, thank you. It has to be a goal. Yeah.
I would also say, and thank you for starting GFDA, because I do think did I get that right, GFDA? Awesome. So one of the things coming from outside the industry, so I came from REI and Vail Resorts and then joined Lindy's firm and sort of jumped into the deep end of the pool. And I think one of the things that feels really missing is the lobbying power of the industry. So you interior designers spec in furnishings alone, soft furnishings alone, $7 billion of goods a year. Not lighting, not fixtures, not surfaces, not building materials, just furnishing. But I would say the lobbying power of the interior design industry sucks. And having gotten to know a lot of the companies that we went and talked to about manufacturing, if you put the spectrum together of like forward thinking and put like the outdoor industry, OIA, SIA, sort of on this end of the spectrum, the furniture industry is probably the other anchor. It's multi-generational, regionalized. We do what we do. We've always done it this way. They don't feel like they need to change. So I think making your voices heard in any way possible to drive that change would be a huge thing you could do, because I don't think they feel, I mean, one of the things we're doing radically is you can order off our website and we don't ship you catalogs. What are you talking about? That's not new. Like, that's, you know, sort of late 90s, early 2000s idea in the consumer space, but in the furniture industry, that is crazy talk. We don't charge you credit card fees because just buy it. Like, that's part of the business. So all these things that I was bringing to the Salt Wolf as like, well, this is obvious, are still, when I talk to other people in the industry on the manufacturing side, they think it's just like, it's crazy town. So the idea of getting all the way through that to how are we packaging stuff, it's a long road to hoe, but I think making your voices heard.
And I think just along those lines, kind of what you were saying about like making your commitment, start with something. Yeah, oh, thanks. I forgot. And to what you're saying, like the lobbying power, like we don't have much right now, but one of the hopes really with the GFDA, so, you know, we're still somewhat new. We're a year and a half, started during COVID. Not the best time to start, but we have 200 firms committed already who are saying, yes, I want to do better. I want to learn how to do better. I want to reduce my waste. And so the hope is that we're going to be expanding chapters, opening new ones, and then really building a strong enough alliance with enough members where we can be like, hey, look at these thousands of members, RH or whoever, like, and really start lobbying and saying, we want things done differently. We also want to promote our current manufacturers who are doing great work, but for large scale change, we all have to like commit. We all have to take that first step. And thank you. I was trying to like avoid that. And so that's really like what we're doing. We have a long road ahead of us. This is not an easy battle. It's a huge industry built on consumption, built on like all the cards are stacked against us, right? But if enough of us, like everyone in this room showed up tonight, our 200 members have already committed. And if we keep building on that, like then there's going to be real momentum and real power to say to all of these places where we're buying that we want it done differently. Because we really do hold it's like, I always say that like being a designer or architect, we have the privilege of like, of designing and building everything we see. Like that fast food place, I don't know the name of it, but because I'm not from here, or this place, you know, everything we see is really because of our industry. And so like, let's use that privilege, like inform ourselves, educate ourselves, and align together to make real change.
Thank you. We've got a few more minutes, probably question, maybe two.
You want me to get my mask on for the mic? Okay. I don't know if you can hear me. So one of the challenges that I came across as a designer and now as a manufacturer is the price tag associated with sustainable, environmentally responsible pieces. It seems to be only something for luxury clients, which is sad, and I think that prevents the growth from happening. With the likes of Wayfair and CB2 and West Elm, it's hard for clients without a large budget to justify spending on a beautiful table made here, which is significantly superior. But if they don't have the income and they can't pay for it, the $400 table from West Elm gets their business. So my question, I don't really know if there's an answer to it, but I think it's a question for everyone in this room. What can we do to start making these products more affordable to the masses, as opposed to leaving them only for the wealthy? Because we're not going to get very far if we can only cater to the wealthy.
That's an awesome question. I'm not going to try to answer it. Does anyone else have something to say in response to that? I mean, I think to your point, I'm sorry, I forget your name. Megan. Yeah, I mean, it's the big box retailers are going 150 miles per hour, but if the consumers and designers are asking enough questions and just like saying no, I don't know how we get everyone to do that. Then, I mean, because I do know West Elm, CB2, all these guys have some sustainable stories in their product. Whether those stories are legitimate or not, I'm not sure. But it's a great question. Does anyone?
I do think there's an element of trickle down. So I think about electric cars. I mean, they were a luxury item in the beginning, and now, you know, our brother-in-law, who's an elementary school assistant principal, drives one. They're becoming affordable. Solar used to be this, well, if I could afford it, I'll do it, but it was sort of a wealthy option. So I do think demand from clients will force this into the mass. Because the mass is where it will make the biggest difference. I mean, when I was at REI, the founder or the executive director of Sierra Club left and went to Walmart, and the industry lost their mind. They were like, you're betraying everything you stand for. How could you do this? And he was like, if I make a single digit improvement across any of their operations, I'll do more than I could ever do at Sierra Club. And it turns out that they're the largest purchaser of organic food in the country. They have the largest, I think, private installation of solar in the country. They've reduced their carbon output of trucking by 20%. So he had the last laugh on that. But I think it's where the effort that you and your clients can bring to the industry that will force this into the mass channels. But it's probably going to start with sort of boutique and small, and it will be probably expensive before we get there.
I think to Katie's point too, that the power in numbers is huge and the power of alliance is powerful. So that's where little me sitting in my cute interior design office, I can only do so much, but like with all of us in this room times however many, if we're in agreement, which I think we are, we can all like start picketing outside of stores or whatever we got to do, right? Who's with me on that?
I don't have it all figured out myself, but something that I've been getting more into as an interior designer is working with pre-loved furniture. So Kathy Pear over here, she's the queen of pre-loved when it comes to contract furniture, office furniture. So, you know, she'll go in and take furniture from a business who might be going out of business or remodeling. And so it keeps that product out of the landfill. Also getting more into revitalizing furniture. So I don't have the skill set, but I just met one of my friends, my new friends here, who specializes in mid-century furniture and refurbishing. So giving it a new life, maybe a new look, but keeping things out of the landfill. That's my approach right now to keeping things a little more affordable.
Thank you. That's a great segue into the completion of our night. I'm sorry, I know you have a question. We are out of time, but we've got 20 minutes to mingle and network and keep the discussion going. And where I was headed, Andy, is all of these topics that you're speaking of, we will be having events about. We're going to be featuring a lot of local artisans who are taking old furniture and making it new again. And Resource, I don't know if you guys realize, but Resource is remodeling their entire lot right now. And in January, they're opening like 4 times as much capacity in their lot than what they've had to date. And it's all under roof. So all that stuff that we used to see at Resource sitting out in the rain and the weather getting depleted, like fire clay tiles, for example. I went there once and there was like 300 fire clay tiles sitting there. And I don't think anyone else would have known that they were fire clay tiles, but I did. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, they're opening in January. So we're going to probably do a big feature on them and all the ways that we can help them succeed and that they can help us succeed, yada, yada, yada. But please follow the GFDA on Instagram. And even if you don't decide to join us, at least you'll kind of know what's going on. And thank you to our panelists for sharing. It takes a lot to get up here and share both the positives and the negatives of your production line. I really appreciate you putting yourselves in the spotlight for the sake of all of our education. And that's it. See you at the wrap party.
I think I blew that stat. I think it's 70 billion.